Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Grief, the emotional shitstorm you never signed up for. I'm your host, Margaret Dennis. I am a women's life empowerment and holistic grief coach, and I work primarily with women who have been through grief and trauma, specifically around the areas of infertility, miscarriage, and child loss. Although, as we know, grief can come in so many different forms. Today, I'm very excited to welcome our guest, Tammy Stuhr, to our audience and to the podcast today to share her experiences. And she's got some good things to share with us today. Before we get started, Tammy, I'm just going to read your bio so that people will understand who you are and why you're here. And for those of you who are listening, if it piques your interest and you think other people might be interested, have them tune in as well and feel free to share the podcast. All right, Tammy. Tammy, aka the Courage Coach, is a best-selling author, speaker, and founder of Author My Day, a company dedicated to inspiring courageous conversations around grief, healing, and hope. She is the author of Jax Dreams of Heaven, a children's book gently exploring grief after loss, and is preparing to launch her second book, Mama, Where's the Baby? A tender storybook on miscarriage and the invisible weight of silent grief. With a background as a researcher in servant leadership, Tammy brings a unique blend of heart and science to her work, inviting people into spaces where pain isn't pushed aside, but welcomed, seen, and supported. She speaks nationally on topics of grief, courage, and leadership, and leads intimate retreats that help people rewrite their personal narrative. Tammy's mission is simple but powerful: to hold space for the emotional shitstorm no one signs up for and help others find courage in the middle of it. Welcome, Tammy. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Let's get into it. I'm very excited to learn so much more about you and to hear more about what you've been up to and to share with our audience how you can help them as well, because as much as we can share some resources with our listeners would be amazing. All
Thank
right,
you,
so
Margaret. It's a
yeah,
pleasure to be here today.
yeah, thank you so much. And where are you heralding from? Where's your home base, Tammy?
I'm in it and we travel full time. And so
Okay.
currently my home is in the Smoky Mountains and sometimes it's by the ocean. For 6 months, Nebraska is our home state. And so we just spent about 6 months back in Nebraska, close to the grandchildren and the family.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but otherwise we have a 1-ton truck that pulls a fifth wheel camper and we chase 70 degrees.
Nice. Oh my goodness. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that would love to experience that. Me being one of them. That sounds like a really interesting way of just changing up the location and bringing something different into your life to keep things interesting, I would assume. Very
Yes.
interesting.
Yes.
All right, so Tammy, Author My Day. It's a great name for a company. It's a company that you said is inspiring courage. So
Mhm.
how do you make a business out of inspiring courage with other people? How do you do that?
So it started as coaching and writing books
Mm-hmm.
and just, yeah, helping people coach when they're on that path and they're going down the worry road instead of the courage road. Then I just help them make it easier to take the courage road to a place of faith. Because whether we're going to fear, we're always going into the unknown, right? And so it's either fear or faith that we're moving towards. And so, yeah, I just help people take the worry road less towards fear and take the courage road more towards faith. A lot of it's in coaching,
Mm-hmm.
training, and then the speaking that I do. The big kind of change I had this last year is categorizing what I do. And so it's about courageous conversations with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's an important one. I take people through dreaming your stress away, interpreting your dreams as one of kind of my premier programs that launched the Courageous Conversations with Yourself. And then Courageous Conversations with Kids is my books, my children's books that are out, and almost all of them have a back page that says Dear Adult. And then it helps whether it's death, grief, hope, believing in yourself, a page about how do you help a child do that. And then my final area is Courageous Conversations with God. And so really leaning in towards what's your servant leadership qualities and what has he put you on earth to lead and to do and to answer your calling and really kind of take that the power hungry leadership that we're so used to, especially in the United States, and change that into wait a minute, there's this servant leader qualities that are really important to our world right now. And if you lead with those, you can make a huge impact on the people that you're called to serve.
Wow, that is beautiful. I love how you have such diversity in your coaching. And so you're hitting that full spectrum of like from children to late adults and everything in between. I think it's always beautiful for people to pause and give themselves time to dream, give themselves time to figure out what that next step is, and to have someone like yourself to walk along beside them and ask the questions and give them, hold space for them to really
Mm-hmm.
reflect and figure that out for themselves. There's so much power in coaching. I love coaching. I love watching the ahas come up when I'm working with my clients. I'm sure you're experiencing the same thing when all of a sudden it's like, oh, when they
Yeah.
actually get to that point where there's this big realization, and then the trust and the understanding that it's possible,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's always such a big thing. Well, thank you for sharing all
Absolutely.
of that. Yeah. And I love how you have an information piece at the back of the book saying, dear parents or dear adult, this is how you can help support your child. Because I think so much of that, there's a lot of that missing in the world. So it sounds like you've thought of all the things that needed to be covered for people to be able to best use what you're putting out there. It's truly amazing, truly amazing.
Well, I come from a career, the past 30 years of teaching adults how to really relate and work with kids. And so, yeah, it was just time to put that in. But what I really noticed in starting Author My Day is the amount of adults that I would train to work with kids. And they'd be like, oh, I wish I had this when I was a kid. I wish somebody would have told me this technique. I wish somebody would have told me how to address conflict with people.
Mhm.
And so that's when I'm like, oh, like it's not too late. Like I
Yeah.
need to start teaching this just for the adults themselves without even the idea of them having to go teach it to kids.
Hmm.
So it's very empowering to be able to work across the generations when it comes to inspiring courage.
Hmm. Oh, I love that. And it sounds actually quite similar to how we started Unshakable Me, right?
Mhm.
I was coaching women, and every time I would coach them in grief, we'd always end up back into the childhood and the things that had happened there and the grief that hadn't been healed from that place, and also seeing how much it had damaged self-worth, self-esteem, self-confidence, and relationships. And so when that was born out of working with the adult women, and now
Right.
we run the Unshakable Me camps for camps and programs for teenage girls to teach them about self-esteem, self-worth, self-confidence. And I think I've seen a lot of coaches who have spanned both generations and the age groups. A lot of it comes out of that work with the adults and just saying, oh my goodness, man, we really do need to go back to that and start at the beginning, even younger, and really start building it up. So I love that you saw that that was a need in what you were dealing with the adults, and being able to now bring it to the kids.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just this afternoon, I was grading. I'm also an adjunct
Hmm.
instructor for speech for a college.
Okay.
And I found myself writing notes to one of my students about, you know what, I trusted you. You turned in late assignments. And that's good of me to trust you because that makes me human and compassionate. But the fact that you didn't get your late assignment in when I already gave you leeway, that makes you not trustworthy
Hmm.
and you need to be working on being trustworthy. And so I'm finding myself continually coaching in all of these situations. I feel like I cannot courage coach somebody anymore. But I mean, public speaking, right? It's such a fear. It's a great place for me to just kind of keep expanding what I do.
Hmm. And when you talk about courage, that sort of sparked another question for me when you were saying, calling someone out on saying, I trusted you and you're not being trustworthy. Courage is not just the courage, it's courage to live into those values and principles that are important to you and important to the people around you as well. Is that correct? When you're talking about courage, is it that all encompassing? Okay.
Very much all encompassing. And I would say a lot of the bravery that happens around courage is never seen. It's
Mm.
that decision in the morning. Okay, I'll tell you something that happened. Talking about courage. Ugh. Like I want one of my children's book to be in Cabela's and Bass Pro Shop.
Hmm.
And so I had sent a letter out asking them to carry it and had it her back. So every time I went into one of those stores, I'd ask them, hey, could you help me out? Well, finally, I ended up finding a lady at the Nebraska State Fair who was selling credit cards and said she would get back to me on this. And anyway, I sent her an email, didn't hear back. Well, I'm in the store where her office is, and I'm up by the cashier, and I'm like, just wanting to check out, just needed a new pair of jeans. It's like, come on, Tammy, come on, you can do it. I go, hey, do you know so and so? And she's like, yeah. And I said, is it easy like to find her office around here? And the lady goes, I can find her for you. She goes, hey, she calls her over. She is two cash registers over talking to the clerk. And it's in that moment, right, where I just want to walk out with my jeans. I just want to stay in my comfort zone. I have this dream, right?
Hmm.
And it's that bravery to turn around and say, hey, could you help me here? I have a
Hmm.
dream. And I think you could be a missy or help me with that connection. And so
Hmm.
it's like in those moments that nobody even knew I was being brave. And
Hmm.
that's the way it is with everybody. Where's those little moments that you're being so brave that it
Hmm.
turns into a courageous moment?
Yeah. And there's so much courage and bravery that happens within grief itself, too. And I think we're going to
Mm,
dive into that. So,
yes.
yeah. So, one of the things that I'd love to share with the listeners too is that you started a foundation that supports grieving families. So tell us more about the Jackson Friends
The
Foundation.
Jackson Friends Foundation. So
Hmm.
this is very new. They just sent me a letter telling me to file my e-postcards. I'm like, yes, I'm in. But the Jackson Friends Foundation has four legs to it. And it started on about August 2nd or 3rd, 3 years ago, when the good Lord had like kind of took my pen, but it was in my hand and had me write down that I was to start this foundation. And the very first thing that I was asked of, the divine calling I was asked of, was to interview people who have lost a child and ask them during your grief, what is something somebody did to bring you a moment of joy or peace? And
Mm.
so I know I'm supposed to make these videos, even the names of the people I'm supposed to interview and ask that question to. Like he gave all of that to me. And so, yeah, so we'll have a website that supports people who want to support people who are going through grief, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so that's going to be really neat. And then also, we're supposed to support families who have lost a child, whether that's a child that you knew and spent time with and lived in your home, or whether it was through miscarriage. And so, like the Wave of Light we have coming up here on October 15th, and that's an hour that you burn a candle, but for the child that was lost. But on the other hand, we're going to do a virtual event where I'm going to read my new book, Mama Where's the Baby. We're going to feature two songs in it, and then we're going to name off the child, and then ring a bell for each one. So the foundation is sponsoring events like that. So one is to support families who have lost a child. The second leg, so out of the four legs, is to connect families and children specifically to authors as role models and
Hmm.
learning about telling your story. The third part of it is to encourage families to get themselves out in nature because we know nature is where we heal. We
Hmm.
need that natural environment in touch with the earth. Like just even walking barefoot on the earth can really help us with our grief and
Hmm.
find hope again. Um, and then the fourth leg is taking collaborations to combine all of those. And
Wow, it's
so
beautiful.
obviously that's a big part of what the Jackson Friends Foundation is doing. And my board of directors are excited to get started. So we've already got our first donation in. So yeah, but yeah, we'll be definitely supporting families that are going through grief. I don't have 100% vision of what that looks like yet. I just know what the divine asked me to do.
Mm-hmm. That is definitely needed. I think there's so many more people out there that don't talk about their grief. They don't talk about if they've had a miscarriage or they're going through infertility. And if they've had a child loss, it really depends. Like how old was the child and how far into their life were there. If they were older, everybody knew. But if they were like brand new, not many people would know. And those people are the ones who tend to grieve in isolation and feel invisible. And so having a foundation where they can go, so anyone listening, please go and check out the foundation if you're going through it yourself or you know someone who is. I always say you cannot heal in isolation. You need community, you need connection, you need people
Yes.
on your team, on your side that are supporting you and helping you move through that. That's amazing. And we'll make sure to there is a link I think we can put in the show notes that'll take people to the foundation webpage and they can learn more. Is that correct?
To the social media handle. We
To
don't
the
even
so
have the
okay.
web page. It is really new. We just got approved in the last month, 2 months,
Okay.
to with our IRS status.
That's fantastic. So we'll make sure that there is a connection to the social media page for you to check it out. And then you can always reach out to Tammy to learn more. Oh, just warms my heart that there's people out in the world like this that are doing such beautiful and impactful things. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So let's get into a few other things. So, of
Okay.
all the children's books that you could write, why
Mm.
did you start with the topic of grief when you debuted your first children's book, Jax Dreams of Heaven?
I didn't have a choice. I actually had somebody tell me, whatever you do, don't start with the heaven book. Like, you're going to get known for death. You're going to get
Mm-hmm.
known for grief. And it didn't matter. It did not matter. It's what I had to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I part of it is my own healing. I lost my mother-in-law. I
Mm-hmm.
have all my parents. So I hadn't been through that kind of grief yet. And yeah, it just kept coming up that this is what needs to happen. And so in the book where Jax hears the adults talking, Grandpa shows up without Grandma. Let's
Mm.
start there. And he hears the adults talking about being in heaven, and he goes to take a nap, and he has a dream that he goes up to heaven to find Grandma. And so I think one of the really important parts that I needed to do was process through my grief of losing my
Mm.
mother-in-law, who
Mm-hmm.
I just loved so dearly. Actually have her earrings on today.
Oh,
I carry her
beautiful.
with me a lot when I go. Um, but it was really important for me
Mm-hmm.
to process that. The other part about that is I lost my nephew. He was 20 years old in the Marines, came home from Afghanistan, and within a year he died in a car wreck.
Mm. So
And
sorry.
thank you. And that was one of the deep hurts of my life. He was the first child that I unconditionally loved. He was the oldest niece and nephew out of the
Mm-hmm.
bunch. But so that was extremely painful. So when I wrote the book, I put a couple Easter eggs in there.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you know the Taylor Swift Easter egg, like putting these hints and special things out there. And I didn't let any of my family read the book
Okay.
before it because Brandon, Jax comes across a Brandon playing on the streets of heaven, hide and
Mm.
seek.
Okay.
And then also we had lost my Aunt Sharon. Before I was ever born, she actually had a car accident, on her way to practice for high school graduation.
Mm.
And very devastating to my grandma for sure. And then obviously my mom and her siblings. And so I also put Aunt Sharon in the book,
Mm-hmm.
playing ball with one of the dogs up in heaven. And so I think that helped me heal a lot
Mm-hmm.
of the deaths and the grief that I had been through. And more importantly, I felt like I could carry on their legacy.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so many, like when I watch my grandchildren, like I can see me in them, right? And I just keep thinking about like my mother-in-law or Brandon, Aunt Sharon, like how can I basically keep their legacy alive here on earth?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was one of those things that that book was calling me more than I was calling it.
And that is, it's beautiful that it's out there. And what a wonderful way to honor those that have passed that meant so much to you, and even ones you didn't know who still impacted your life, right? Through your parent, through your mom. And they say that writing is probably one of the most healing things that you can do when you're moving through grief. I know I've experienced it too, that writing is just so therapeutic. It slows your brain down enough that you can actually put your emotions, what do they say, like emotions are energy, or what is it, emotions are energy in motion or something like
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah,
And so you have, like, whether you go for a walk on in nature barefoot, or whether you write or you sing or you dance or you cry, it's that motion of allowing the emotions to flow through you, and writing truly does that, truly does that. So what a gift to share with people, and with your family too. I imagine they were very surprised and touched, to see the honor that you put with Brandon and Sharon and including them in the book.
yes,
And that is definitely a way to keep their legacy alive, right? To keep them front and center, because now they're in hard copy.
right.
They are written and they are part of a book. That's, I love that. I love that. Um, so you have another book coming up. So your book debuting this coming October, like tomorrow is October, November, called Mama, Where's the Baby? What inspired you to write a book on grief around miscarriage specifically?
Well, that same day that I was asked to start the foundation, I was also asked to write the book on miscarriage. And I'm like, me? Why me? Like, it's been 20 years since I had a miscarriage. Like, and of course, kind of that imposter syndrome of, I never got to hold my baby. I didn't have the pain that somebody else did. And that comparison really kind of held me back from answering that call. But um, again, it was one of those things that I thought I was fine. Like,
Mhm.
I'm fine. Yeah, we had a miscarriage. Moving on, outside of a little comparison when I would see somebody else that was pregnant at the same time I was, that, oh, their child's graduating from high school today. Oh, their child's whatever, right?
Mhm.
And of course, with Facebook, we get it like that's always around us, or other social media channels. So I kind of put that off as much as I could and didn't write for almost a year. And then I happened to be in Nashville, Tennessee at this retreat, and they had us meditate and meet our guardian angel in the meditation. And when during that meditation, I got handed a box from my guardian angel with a heart in it. And I think it was representing the heart of the baby,
Mhm.
and an artistic heart, not like a
Yeah.
human heart. Let's be clear. It was a beautiful art. Um, and then when we got done with the meditation, I was sitting on the floor barefoot, surprise, surprise. And I kind of turned to get a better support on my back. And the lady that was sitting beside me looked at me and she said, "You're supposed to write the book on miscarriage." I go, how did you know I had a miscarriage?
Mhm.
And she goes, "I have no idea if you had a miscarriage. All I know is my guardian angel told me to tell you to write the book on miscarriage." And so I walked out on the front porch of this beautiful mansion in Nashville overlooking this hill. And I sat down and I wrote the first words, bawled my eyes out.
Mhm.
And I'm like, enough of that.
Yeah.
Not through that again. Right.
Yeah.
And so then last summer, I was meeting with my author critique group. And I'm like, I've got to get this done. Like, there's so many things stalling in my life when I don't answer the Lord's call because I need to be working on what He asks me to do. So I promised my critique group I was going to get it out. Finally, took an hour and a half, and I just laid it all out and just bawled my eyes through it.
Mhm.
And then sent it off to my critique group to meet in a couple of days. It was really interesting because one of my critique group members go, Tammy, not everybody has that good of experience with miscarriage. They don't have that much support. They don't. have this or that happens in the book. And I go, that wasn't my experience. That's the support I wish I had.
Mm.
And so to me, I finally realized that that book is a role model of how we
Mm-hmm.
can support somebody going through miscarriage.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then fast forward to I was at a conference a year ago, almost to the day. And again, I'm still stalling on this whole book. Like, I don't want to write this book. Just
Mm-hmm.
don't. And I end up being in Canada for like another half day. My husband was begging me to come home. We just sold our house. We were going to go start this full-time traveling. And he's like, when are you coming home? We close like in 3 days. And I'm like, oh, I'll leave at noon today. And in that time, we got put into these author groups and we had to pose a challenge. I posted a challenge about my miscarriage book. And this lady looks at me, she goes, you wrote a book on miscarriage? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I did. And she goes, I miscarried last month and I need your book. Can I have it now?
Wow.
And once I had her and her boys to write for, then the story really came.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I
since
just
then,
got shivers. Oh, I just
right?
got shivers.
Yes, the
Yes.
God bumps are like popping all over me right now.
Yeah.
And that's what I needed. I
Mm-hmm.
needed somebody else to write for. And in the back of the miscarriage book, the first part of my parent page is actually to the parents, to the parents about
Mm-hmm.
how to heal themselves. And one of
Mm-hmm.
those things is to reach out to somebody else that has gone through what you've gone through
Mm-hmm.
or is going through
Yeah.
to help that healing process. And after that, Mama Where's the Baby became a joy.
Mm-hmm.
It actually
Wow.
became a joy to be able to share and to write and to put out into the world. I just finished up at the American Association of Christian Counselors this last week, and I'm back in Nashville again. And it was really fascinating to have all those counselors and therapists and ministers and pastors and life coaches come by, and how many of them said, we need this book. We
Mm-hmm.
need this book. And we've never seen a book like this. Like, there's
Mm-hmm.
books for children on death, right? And
Mm-hmm.
miscarriage, but they're like, we've never seen one like this. This is excellent.
Oh, amazing. Congratulations. To
Thank
get that
you.
kind of feedback and praise and encouragement about your book is so
Right.
empowering and
Yes.
reaffirming. Even though we know
Yes.
we've done it from our heart and we've written the book
Uh-huh.
that we need to write, well,
Hmm.
there's our little ego part that always likes to know that people find it helpful. And I'm looking forward to reading it. Yeah, and exactly what you were saying, that we don't talk about it enough. People don't know how to support people who've been through it. And a lot of the times, women who've been through miscarriage don't share that they've been through a miscarriage. It's
Hmm.
very private.
Hmm.
And then you bring it with you everywhere. So people don't understand how to support you if they don't know what's happened.
Right.
Um, and they call it the invisible grief, that and infertility, very much invisible
Yeah.
grief. And we suffer in silence for, we don't have to, but we
Hmm.
do. We
Hmm.
really do, because we are going through so many things inside of ourselves around how we feel like our bodies betrayed us and we feel broken, and why me, and why am I being tested this way? Why am I being brought this lesson? Why is this happening to me? Um, why, and so many unanswered questions. I love that you've put it to paper and made it into a book that people can relate to and people can gravitate towards and use, not only as information but as support for the people in their lives and for themselves and kids too, right? Especially if mommy's pregnant and they know mommy's pregnant and then mommy's not pregnant, the children have lost a sibling. And I think sometimes we forget that the kids actually know, and they're a part of it. So that's amazing. I'm looking forward very much to reading this book and actually including it with my clients, for the ones who've been
Oh,
through that, to give them a resource to go to help them understand too that they're not alone.
right. And thank you for
Yeah.
that. Thank you.
Oh, you're
One of
welcome.
the interesting parts, well, two things are coming to mind. Number one, when I miscarried, there's a person in our office when I went back to work that next Monday that said, something happened last week and we are not going to talk about it. And
Mm,
so when you talk about silent, I got silenced.
yeah.
But there's always that one person in the office. And it was fascinating because I heard her coming down the hall. I was clear down at the end of the hall in my office. And she walks into my office and she hands me a picture. She goes,
Mm-hmm.
"He's got your baby till you get there." And it was a picture of Jesus holding a baby in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And that was so healing for me. That's
Mm-hmm.
my answer to what
Mm-hmm.
something that somebody did that brought you joy or peace during your grief. That
Mm-hmm.
moment, that moment.
Yeah.
And it kind of shows up in the book. You'll see
Mm-hmm.
that. Um, but the second part of this is I had a friend who miscarried, and she's telling me about her experience where the priest came over to the house and they named the baby and all of this. I'm like, I wish I would have had that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how cool is that? So in the book, the children make a stepping stone for their parents.
Oh,
And
nice.
one of the things that I have been called to do, I don't know how this is going to work, right? It's just a calling. Like, he hasn't given me all the answers yet. Besides, go live in a fifth wheel and travel the country. But is to go across the United States and Canada making stepping stones with
Mm.
those that maybe have lost a baby 5 days ago or 55 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it became really apparent in April when I was telling this lady about what book I was working on. She had asked, she goes, "Oh, Tammy," she goes, "I had a miscarriage." I go, "You did? I didn't know that about you." And she goes, "Yeah." And I go, "How old would have your baby been?" And she said 55. And she goes, "I was 7 months along." She goes,
Oh,
"And
wow.
Tammy, I don't know what they did with my baby."
Wow.
And I said, "Hey, when I'm back this summer, can I make a stepping stone with you?" And told her about the book, or, that the children do this. She goes, "You would do that?"
Mm-hmm.
So between this act of creating a stepping stone, providing community, a story around it, somehow I'm supposed to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't figured it out yet. But I do know that that's part of what that book is supposed to do, is bring women, and now I'm finding out men and
Mm-hmm.
community to be able to celebrate this life
Yeah.
of the hand they never held.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Oh, my heart's very full right now just thinking about it. Yeah. I know we lost our son when he was 3 days old, and he was twin to my daughter, and they were born very early at 5.5 months. And we did get to name him, and we did get to hold him, but it was a loss. It was a big loss, and totally like the whole process of going through infertility and then losing a child is a lot of grief. I personally have not experienced miscarriage. My issue is I could never get pregnant, but I do
Hmm.
have many, many, many friends who have miscarried. And it's always I don't think there's many words to describe what the experience is. It's such a big loss. And anytime we can bring it to the conversation, I think grief in general needs to become a bigger conversation piece where people aren't afraid to talk about it. Um, And I think what happened in your office, where people are like, we know what happened last week, we're not going to talk about it,
Hmm.
is more for them than for you
Yeah.
because they don't know how to support, they don't know what to say. And so I know I'm on a mission to get grief to be like a household word where people can talk about, well, what can I do to help you? And even that question, though, is not the best question to ask because when people are grieving, they have no idea what they need.
No.
That's a whole other podcast. And I think I've done one like that. I'm not sure, but diving into how do you support people who are grieving, no matter what that grief is, whether it's miscarriage or loss of a child or infertility or death of a spouse or loss of a pet or downsizing, losing a friend, all of these things we as a community need to pull together and learn how to support people in a way that is actually helpful, not hurting, and not putting undue pressure or expectations on the people who are grieving. Like how many times
Yes.
have you heard, oh, you're so strong, you're so brave. Yeah, guess what, we don't want to be that way. We don't want to be
No.
strong. We don't want to be brave. We want to collapse in a puddle and cry and let somebody else make decisions and stop the world from rotating for just a while because it hurts so much. But
Hmm.
we are out there. We're going through the motions. And then when we go through the motions, people think that you're okay. I've seen that so many times where people are like, I was out in the grocery store and I was actually giggling, and somebody went, oh, they must be fine. And they're like, 5 minutes later, I'm in my car crying because I'm not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's being able to recognize that grief is a lifelong journey. And the woman that you shared was 55, had miscarried 55 years ago. She still carries that grief. It doesn't go away just because, you know, time has passed. It's always a part of you. That loss is always
Yeah.
a part of you.
One of the
Oh.
things that I teach about is emotions,
Mm-hmm.
and that when an emotion hits, experience it. So if it's the
Mm-hmm.
tears, let the tears go, right? Because
Yes.
it's only going to last 5 minutes. And on the other side of that, like when you do get a hold of a new baby and you have that joy, don't grab the phone.
Mm.
Don't stop it. You only get that for 5 minutes at the most, right?
Yeah.
So experience it. But
Mm-hmm.
there's one feeling that goes beyond 5 minutes, and that's grief.
Mm-hmm. It is.
And they still don't have a science behind how long that feeling of grief lasts,
There is no timeline.
right? That's
Everybody's
my thing.
different. Everybody's different. I've had so many clients say, how long is this going to last? And I'm like, I can't give you a timeline. It's really how you're choosing to go through the motions.
Mhm.
I always, my approach with the coaching that I do with my clients is you have to feel to heal. So like you said, let the emotions come, let them wash over you. You may have to do that over and over and over, and it may be intense for quite a while, but you give yourself a little bit of lightness, a little bit of space to breathe. And you also give yourself permission to live and to feel joy without feeling guilty. And that's where I think so many people get stuck and get trapped in the grief because they're afraid that if they feel joy or if they're happy or if they love again or they move forward, or people say move on, you don't ever move on, you move forward and you learn how to incorporate it, they're afraid they're going to forget, or they're afraid they're going to lose that connection, but they won't. They won't. You can't forget that you miscarried. You can't forget that your child passed. You can't forget that your spouse died. Those are things that you never do forget, but you can learn to live again. And it's
Yes.
in that, like your courage, right? Having that courage to heal, the courage to feel everything that you feel, no matter what it is, and just allow it to be there is so important, because then it gives space and it honors your experience rather than trying to do it the way you think people expect it to be done. I think that's where we get caught up in the expectations. And I really don't know where the playbook is for a society who says this is how it's supposed to be, because there is not one. But for some reason, we get caught up in the idea that it isn't something that we talk about. Don't bring it to the grocery store. Don't bring it to the PTA meeting. Don't bring it to work. But you can talk about stress and you can talk about the great things that you did on the weekend, but you can't talk about grief. And I think that we do ourselves a big disservice by not honoring that space. I think people are afraid of it. They're afraid that if I see you grieving, it might happen to me. That there's that fear that if I can see myself in you, and I don't want to feel that pain when it hasn't even happened.
Yeah. It might be
Yeah.
contagious.
It might be contagious. And I think scientifically, we're like, what's the scientific reason for, that particular avoidance? I think it's literally in our reptilian brain that sees grief as a threat. And
Yeah.
so it's like, I'm going to moonwalk right out of here and I'm going to let you do your grief. And I'm going to stand over here. If you need me, let me know. But I'm not going to get too close because it might hurt me.
Right.
And we react subconsciously without even really understanding the impact that that has on the people around us. For
Well,
anyone listening, the best way you can do is just be there and show up and
right.
and let the person grieve however they grieve. Sorry, go
Right.
ahead.
No, it was really hard for me when you talked about losing your son,
Mm-hmm.
because I immediately, and I'm like, Tim, you're doing a podcast. Like, you can't go into all this, right? But I wanted to come sit with you and say, tell me
Mm-hmm.
about your son. What was his name? Tell me what those 5 days were like for you that you were able to experience with him. And how did you say goodbye? And like, I wanted to do that because when we sit with somebody in their grief, guess what else we get to do? We get to sit in their love.
Mm-hmm. Well, grief comes from love.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to have grief if you didn't have love.
Yeah.
And so we get to experience, we get to
Mm-hmm.
experience the love when we choose to sit in grief with somebody.
Mm-hmm. I'm
So
not
it's the
sure if that
blessing
leads
and the
into,
burden.
yeah. Well, and that's what like I've spoken about this and written about this quite a bit, is that you can't you can't experience love and grief at exactly the same moment, but you can flip-flop back and forth. Like the grief comes out of
Oh,
love, and because physically, like
okay.
you can flip-flop back and forth, right? Like when
Right,
I think about
right.
when my son passed, his name was Isaac. When Isaac passed, his sister Lily was still in the NICU, in the neonatal
Uh-huh.
intensive care unit. And so I was able to pour all my love into her, but I
Mm,
couldn't be loving her. And like I would flip flop feeling love for her and grief for him, and love for her and grief for him, but I
mhm,
couldn't hold both at the exact same time. Doesn't mean you don't feel them at the same time, but you can't have
mhm.
them at exactly the same time, like if that makes
Sure.
sense. So,
Yeah.
a lot of the time I would sit in the NICU with my daughter feeling, scared because she was so little. They were born so early, but loving her and loving her and loving her. And then I would go home at night and I would cry because I didn't, my son had passed. So it was like this almost compartmentalizing. But
Hmm.
grief is born out of love. And you have to have some force, sort of emotional connection to the event or the person or the thing that you've lost in order to feel that grief. And you can feel like when you're seeing people that going through grief, you have an emotional connection to those people, right? And there's that I can sympathize, I can empathize with what you're going through. I don't know exactly because you never do, but I can feel a little bit of that with you. So,
Right.
yeah. There was
Uh,
one other question I wanted to ask you, Tammy.
yeah.
And so, there, just before we wrap up, because I noticed we've been talking for a while, which is fantastic. I told you we just go till we stop. But there are many stages in the grief cycle that they've cited. And I've heard you believe that there's one missing. So, what do you believe is missing in those stages?
Creation.
Creation.
I
Tell me
believe
more.
creation is missing. So from early on, one of my big losses was my grandma when
Mm-hmm.
I was not quite 20, but I didn't get to be there for her funeral, but I did get to spend her last month of her life taking care of her.
Mm-hmm.
But I missed her horribly,
Mm-hmm.
horribly. And at times I still do. And when I miss her, I make her cookies.
Mm,
And then I found myself when I lost my grandmother-in-law, I make her carrot cake.
mm-hmm.
And then I lose my mother-in-law, and what do you know? I create Jax Dreams of Heaven. And
Ah,
so
okay.
I think that creation is what helps us pull as whatever cycle we're in. And maybe that sometimes I'm kind of stuck. I might be stuck
Mm-hmm.
in anger. I might be stuck in denial, whatever. But I will create something. And I
Mm-hmm.
also think that's where the stepping stone comes in the book. So the children, right, wanted to pull their parents out of that grief cycle and or didn't know what to do, right? So they
Mm-hmm.
created a stepping stone. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think creation is the one that we need to add
Mm-hmm.
to it, and not necessarily as a part of the cycle or one of the elements, but I think it's like this element that comes out of every one of those. And
Yeah.
I think
It's a
that's what
way of it.
helps us
I would
move
in,
on,
I would
move
interpret it
forward.
as move forward. Yes, move forward. I would interpret it as almost like a way of honoring and
Yes.
remembering by being, and again, the emotion, right? You're creating, yours motion, the emotions are in motion, you're remembering, you're sad, you want to feel close to them, you create something that reminds you of them. Some people will, write a poem, other people will paint a picture, some people might crochet. Like I have a friend of mine who's an amazing crocheter, and she learned from her grandmother. So when she crochets, she feels close to her grandmother.
Ah,
And I love that's a really good point. So anyone listening, if you're feeling distant or sad about the person you're missing, do something that they enjoyed or create something that they created. Bake their favorite cake. I have my grandmother's, what does she call it? Yorkshire pudding recipe. Every time I do a roast beef dinner, I always make her Yorkshire pudding. recipe. And it does. It makes you feel closer to them. It makes you feel closer to
It
them. Even
does.
though she passed in the 90s, I think 90s, I don't even know, 98, maybe 98 is, but it was a while. But you still feel really close to them. And my daughter's named after her. Lily is named after my grandmother.
Okay.
So every time I say the name, every time I see her, it feels like that connection. But creating, I
Absolutely.
love that. I love that way of turning something that can be so incredibly painful into something that can be love,
Right.
right? And you're
Right.
creating this out of love, and
Yeah.
maybe a little bit of sadness, but definitely out of love. So
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. We
excellent.
and within that, I'm and like I said, I'm very intentional about my jewelry. Like I wear this when I want my mother-in-law with me. I
Mm-hmm.
wear this other necklace when I want a spirit of adventure from my other grandma. And then when I want to be comforting and compassionate and lean into that, I wear a different piece of jewelry from my other grandma. And
Mm,
so I really think it's important that, yes, we create when we miss them and honor them, but I think it's also to carry on their legacy within us.
mm-hmm.
So, and you'll always be connected to Isaac. Like you cannot.
Yes.
Like now he's part of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, what do you do or how can you carry on Isaac's legacy in this world and what
Mm-hmm.
he's meant to be? And obviously your podcast is a huge part of that and the work that you do. So I think I think grief is about being very intentional
Mm-hmm.
so we can experience it. Because grief
I've
is a really, it sucks, but it's also a really good thing.
Well, it's something we're all going to go through at some point in our lives, either in, huge moments or smaller moments where we're all going to experience it. And yes, feel the pain, feel the sadness, feel the loss. You absolutely have to feel those things. Don't push them down, let them flow. And then honor the life that we've lost, or the job that you've lost, or the house that you've lost. Like, honor the things that you've lost, because grief is not just death, it is loss or change. And honor those things that you've lost. And then what's the next step? You're still going to feel it, but where do you want to go now? What do you want to create? How do you want to dream? How do you
Yeah.
want to be courageous and intentional in how you heal? I always say that to my clients too. I love that you use the word intentional, because I use that all the time. I'm like, you need to choose to intentionally heal. It's not
Hmm.
something you just let happen. You could, but you're probably not going to get the best results as if you were actually intentional in what you were doing and the steps you were taking. And having a coach,
Hmm.
yourself, myself, other people who coach in the grief field, to support you and help you, shine a light on some of those places that maybe need more attention, or even just to hold space while you cry. Maybe you don't have those people. Maybe
Hmm.
you don't, maybe you feel like you've leaned on your family and your friends so much that now you just need someone who's impartial and is not connected, that you can come and just lay the gauntlet down of carrying this grief and feel supported. So often, especially if we're a parent and we've lost a child, or we've lost our parent, we have kids and other family members, and especially as women, we tend to take on that caregiver role within the grief as well, and take care of everyone else but ourselves. So
Yes.
it's very, very important that we remember to take care of ourselves. So, yes.
Absolutely.
All right, Tammy, before we wrap up, and
Yeah.
first of all, thank you so much for sharing everything with us today. It's been a
Oh, yeah.
beautiful conversation, and I'm
Yes.
very excited to read the books. You had said that, when we talked before we got on camera, that you have a free offer for people. Do you want to share that with them?
I would love to. So I am sharing my dream interpretation process. And so
Mm.
if you email me at authormyday@gmail.com, I will share how to get dream journaling started, which is just another way to not only process life, but definitely process grief.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, so email away and let me send you the dream interpretation process. So that way you can find meaning within your dreams and find hopefully some closure, some healing
Mm-hmm.
around the love that you've lost.
Oh, I'll be emailing you as soon as we're off the podcast. I love the idea of analyzing dreams. I think it's amazing. Well, thank you, Tammy, for being here. Just for anyone who's listening, I will be putting all of Tammy's information in the show notes below. You can reach out to her about the foundation, about her books, about her coaching, about the dream journaling, like so many amazing offers out there to support you as you travel your journey. So, Tammy, again, thank you so much for joining me today. Really, really enjoyed the conversation. And for anyone who's been listening, who found the conversation helpful or wants to share it with someone who may find it helpful, please subscribe and like, and please share far and wide. So more people we can help support, the better. So thank you so much for joining us on Grief, the emotional shitstorm you never signed up for. And we will see you again next week. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, Margaret.
Bye.